brought the budget candidates to you, committee candidates to you, that one of them had marked on there, and I had missed it. They had done something for us. So we not only contacted her, but we went back and looked at the rest of them to make sure that we didn't have similar circumstances. And indeed, I found two other individuals who had occasionally substituted for classified staff in the district. So we simply went to them and said this: if you want to continue to be on the budget committee, you need to cease from being employed with the district for the entire term of your budget committee. So two of them came back immediately and said, no, I want occasionally working. And then one of them rescinded the later date. So that said, we went out, Julia went out and talked to community people. She was able to get 3 people to throw their hats into this, and it's really adding to kind of a nicely balanced bunch. So specifically, the 3 people that have officially said that they're rescinding their application because they want to continue to casually work, or Sheena Brown, Tammy Hewitt, and Abigail Ferris. We received 3 additional applicants: Paula Siverly, Chris Jones, and 2 Foxes Singing. So basically, we brought some representation from Walters, we brought some representation from Chamber of Commerce, and we got a handful. So, you know, I'm happy with the possibilities of these additions. And so, with that, we would ask the board to accept the resignation of the previously conditionally appointed and reappoint these new individuals to the budget committee. I have an orientation scheduled for report.
Mr. Chair, I so move as recommended.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to accept the resignation of the 3 board members, accept the new board members for the budget committee. Any further discussion?
Good people.
Yeah, that was a good choice.
Great.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Very well. Tim, have you, at this point, I mean, it's might be early to ask you, informed at that time that you're going to start the first budget?
So the calendar is out. The board approved it a couple months ago. March 30th or 31st. I think March 30th is Monday.
That's the orientation meeting?
The orientation with the new folks is on the 12th. It's my office just with those folks, which is just to kind of give them, this is how we're thinking of this.
March 30th.
Okay, so on March 30th, there's a board workshop. It's not a budget committee, it's a board workshop with the intent of giving an update on the budget. We've done this every year. The idea is to take a little review what's been going on in the last couple of years, how we doing in the current year plan, and what do we see as the issues that we're going to be dealing with in the budget that we proposed in April. And then the first budget committee meeting is April 21st, 6 p.m. here. Again, the budget calendar is posted on the website. That's the time we will actually vote. 2021.
Okay. Great. So,
And just one other side note on that, because school investment account funds, that's a significant change for the ensuing year. Mr. Warner will be coming to the board, I believe, at the next board meeting to share our initial plan for those resources. So it is budget related. So just want to kind of budget.
okay. And those are still in there about what kind of funds those will be.
They've given us an official estimate based on their well, we're obligated to plan based on their official estimate. they've already started collecting tax. So the advantage that they have in meeting the numbers that they've given an official estimate is that they started collecting tax previously that isn't going to be spent this fiscal year, but being collected this fiscal year on top of the taxes that they'll collect next year. So they'll have a year and a half worth of funding to fund that first year, so there's a reasonable chance that they'll get close to it. But the fact is, until I actually go through a cycle or two, it's an estimate. And so the plan has to hold loosely to some of what we would initially propose.
Any further questions for Tim? Great. Okay, so we're going to be, and I'm excited for that, just looking at the bond survey. And I guess we're going to be online with Melissa. Okay.
Yes.
Melissa, are you there? You want to, okay.
You have the floor, Melissa.
Oh, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Well, my name is Melissa Martin, and I am the Survey Research Director for the Nelson Report. I have been conducting research with the Nelson Report since 2001, and prior to that, I worked for a nonprofit called the Oregon Alliance of Children's Program, where I managed an outcome survey for youth coming in of children's programs throughout the state of Oregon. I would like to thank the district and the board for inviting me to present the results of the survey research project to you all. The purpose of the survey was to accumulate or collect some information regarding the public's perception of the Oregon Trails District and a potential $125 million bond measure. We talked to statistically random samples of Oregon Trails District voters between January 14th and February 1st of this year. We completed a total of 374 surveys at an error rate of plus or minus 5%. That's 95% level of confidence, which means if we were to conduct this survey 100 times, it should come within that plus or minus 5% margin of error 95 out of 100 times. 8% of our sample were frequent or perfect voters, which means that they voted in at least 3 out of the last 4 elections or voted in all 4 of the last 4 elections. Because our sample was weighted or more weighted toward older, more frequent voter groups, the results have been weighted by age to reflect age breakouts within the district boundaries. First question that we asked respondents was an open-ended question. So basically we asked people for 2 or 3 of the most serious issues facing Oregon Trail School District. Not sure was the #1 response given by respondents. 29% respondents gave not sure as a response. Overcrowding was next at 16%. Lack of funding at 12%. Students don't get good education at 5%. Need better teachers at 5%. Schools need upgrades at 4%. No concerns, 4%. Teacher salaries at 4%. Wasteful spending, 4%, and need more teachers. This isn't a complete list of open-ended responses, but it is the top responses. We then asked respondents to rate Oregon Trail School District as excellent, pretty good, only fair, or poor. And the excellent and pretty good were collapsed into a positive rating, while the only fair scores were collapsed into a negative rating. So slightly less than half of respondents, 49%, rated the job performance of the school district positively. 10% gave an excellent rating. 39% gave a pretty good rating. 29% rated the district negatively. 22% rated the district only fair, and only 7% rated the and a relatively high 22% were not sure how to rate the school district's performance. We then asked them why they gave a specific rating that they gave. You will see two percentages here. The first percentage is the percentage of all of the excellent respondents or excellent responses, and the second percentage is the percent of all the respondents. So as you can see, so for example, 10% of all respondents gave an excellent rating. 12% of that 10% said great performance, which is 1% of everyone. From what I heard, 12% or 1% of everyone, and students get a good education, 12% and 1% of everyone. 39% of all respondents gave a pretty good rating. The top response was good performance at 18% or 7% of everyone. From what I've heard, 13% or 5% of everyone, and always room for improvement at 9% or 3% of all participants. We then asked them why they gave an only fair rating, and which was 22% of all respondents. Students don't get a good education at 20%, which is 4% of everyone. Always room for improvement at 13%, which is 2% of everyone. For leadership at 13%, which is only 2% of everyone. Main reasons for poor rating, which is 7% of everyone. Students don't get good education, 34%, which is 3% of everyone. And poor performance, which was 17% and 1% of everyone. We then asked folks if they believe they received a good value for what they paid in school district property taxes. Slightly less than half of respondents, 46%, believe it's a good value for what they pay in school district property taxes, while 37% did not, and another 17% were not sure. Those who said that they did not believe the district, or they received a good value for what they paid, which was 37% of everyone, property taxes too high, was given at 21% or 7% of all respondents. Too much waste at 17% or 6% of all respondents. And students don't get good education at 16% or 6% of everyone. We then asked them whether or not they believe some of the district schools were overcrowded. 16% of respondents believed Oregon Trail, some of Oregon Trail's K-8 schools were overcrowded, while 17% did not, and a relatively high 23% were not sure. The one thing I would say with these perception ratings is you have, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's a relatively high number of not sure responses throughout these questions that we have. And that is not unusual. I'm seeing this of Oregon, especially since the state of Oregon in general has 60% of all Oregon voters are over the age of 45 and less likely to have children in school. And so we are seeing a lower level of knowledge within the school district, within school districts about performance and so on, because if they don't have children in school, then they may or may not be in and out of the school or may not be receiving as much information as others. And in addition, Oregon Trail School District has been growing at a fairly rapid rate. And so as new residents come in, because they don't have a history with the school district, it's more likely to see higher not sure responses as well. We then asked respondents about the $125 million bond measure. Now this question was designed to not introduce bias. So basically what it did is it's somewhat similar to what someone might see on a ballot title. It basically outlines what the school district bond measure would pay for, what the total cost of the bond measure is, and what the estimated cost per thousand is. So basically respondents would split with 45% that opposed a $125 million bond measure, and 44% that favored the proposal, with 11% that were not sure. Next, we came in and gave them a single piece of information and asked them if whether with that information they would favor or oppose the bond measure. So all of the results that you're going to see in these next few slides, oh, actually no, I got ahead of myself. I will go ahead and finish my thought though. In the next few slides, all of the percentages have been compared to the head question. So this is the single question that we wanted to see how messages impacted one way or the other, whether it was positive or negative. We asked folks to favor or oppose the bond measure, why they favored or opposed. So 44% remember favored the bond measure. Reasons for favoring were schools need the funds. So 25% of favor respondents said schools need the funds, which was 11% of everyone. Schools always need improvement, 21% at 9% of everyone. And students deserve a good education at 8% of everyone. Reasons for opposing the $25 million bond measure, which was 45% of all respondents. They mismanaged funds, 28% or 13% of everyone. Taxes are already too high at 21% or 10% of everyone. Asking for too much money, 12% or 6% of everyone. And they aren't transparent about where funds go at 8% or 4% of all respondents. At the very end of the survey, after listening to all the pros and cons, we asked them again whether they would favor or oppose a $125 million bond measure. There was a slight decrease in the number of respondents that would favor a bond measure after listening to all the pros and cons. So as you can see in this chart, there was very little movement between the beginning of the survey and at the end of the survey. So here's what I'm talking about. So as you can see up above, it says head results in $125 million bond measure. Initially, 44% favored the proposal, 45% opposed, and 2% were not sure. So the top message delivered that moved people the most in favor of a $125 million bond measure was knowing that a volunteer independent citizen oversight committee would monitor the expenditure of bond funds to make sure that they are spent well. That was a 67% favor of that piece of information, which was a plus 23% gain. Next, I know those of you or those of us who work with bonds and so on, it's a given that bond payments are distributed as new residents move into the community, that the average resident may not know that. So knowing that bond payments would be structured so residents who move into the community in the future would assist in the payment of the bond measure, 64% favored that piece of information, which is a 20% gain. 1% favored with information that the school district K-8 schools, some of those schools are between 106 and 137% over capacity, and that passage of the bond measure would address overcrowding issues district-wide. Knowledge that the proposed bond measure would protect the community's large investment in school buildings by making renovations and improvements, such as replacing old and outdated heating and ventilation systems, carpet and paint. 59% on in favor of that piece of information, which was a plus 15% gain from the original head system. If you knew passage of the proposed bond measure would ensure all students are provided with equal educational school facilities, no matter where they attend school in the district, 58% favored with that piece of information, which was a plus 14% gain. If you knew passage of the bond measure would enable the district to replace temporary modular classrooms with permanent classroom space to address enrollment, 58% favored with that piece of information, again a 14% gain. Knowing that the school district saved property taxpayers $10 million by refinancing the bond approved by voters in 2008, 57% favored with that piece of information, which was a 13% gain. Knowing that every K-8 school in the district would receive renovations and upgrades to ensure equity and consistency in buildings district-wide, 55% favored with that piece of information, which was an 11% gain. Knowing the bond measure includes technology upgrades district-wide, such as wiring and cabling, upgraded security cameras, and wireless access points. 55% favored with that piece of information, which was an 11% gain. Knowing that businesses looking into the community or looking to relocate into the community are influenced by the public school academic programs and community support, 53% favor, which is a plus 9% gain. Once we get into these under 55% numbers, we have to start thinking about that minus 5%. So we're kind of under that 50%. So we're seeing that these arguments or these pieces of information that might be used in a campaign are not as effective as some of the other messages that were used previously that moved people at a higher. The cost of the bond measure at 64 cents per thousand, or approximately $224 per year for the owner of a home with an assessed value of $350,000. 47% favored with that piece of information, which was still a slight gain, but not over the 50% threshold that we would want that you would need to be successful with the bond. If you knew the proposed bond measure includes a new complementary structure at Candy Grade School that would preserve and maintain the historical design, 45% favored with that piece of information, which is a plus 1% gain. I don't know if what perhaps drove not as much of a response to that particular question, but it did not solicit a large number of opinions in the favor category. We then presented respondents with 3 construction projects, and we asked them to rank them on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 being a low priority and 4 being a high priority. So the 1s and 2s were collapsed into a low priority rating, and the 3s and 4s into a high priority rating. And so here the 3 or 4 priorities or construction projects are ranked from highest priority to lowest priority. So the top priority for the community was making upgrades throughout the district, including replacing old and outdated heating and ventilation systems, carpet paint, and other necessary repairs. If you remember earlier in the survey when we asked about protecting the community's investment, that was also a high level of support. So 60% gave that a high priority. Construct, renovate to create permanent classrooms, space and support space, or permanent classroom and support space district-wide to relieve overcrowding. 59% thought that was a high priority. Technology infrastructure upgrades, such as wiring and cabling. 59% respondents saw that as a high priority. So the aspect of school buildings, such as making improvements to parking lots and parent pickup and drop-off spots, as you can see, was not seen as a high priority, and in fact, a majority of respondents saw that as a low priority. However, I do think that there is perhaps some room with that. I don't know if making some of these improvements and improving parent pickup and drop-off points, etc., will have any impact on safety in those areas, but perhaps if it can be linked to any kind of safety improvement, there may be a way to increase the level of support for that particular component of the project. So here, what we did is we compared questions that were similar. So, for example, measure protects the community's investment in buildings. What we're looking for here is we want to see good consistency between these questions. If we see good consistency, and this is why we ask sometimes similar questions in similar ways or and in different formats, because we want to ensure that there's good veracity and consistency with the argument. So if someone knew something to be true, they may favor a opposed proposal. We come in with we ask them a priority question, and then we come in with a purposely prejudicial agree-disagree to test the veracity of the argument, to see if the district may have to do some additional education to convince people that what you have presented to them is true. So here, for example, 59% favored with information that the proposed bond measure would protect the community's investment in school buildings. You see here in the priority series, 60% believed that replacing old outdated heating and ventilation systems, carpet, etc. were a high priority. And then in the agree-disagree series, we need to protect the community's large investment in school facilities. I would favor a bond measure that includes repairs, maintenance throughout the district. 67% agree with that statement. So what that tells us is there is a very strong argument and a good reason for people to vote yes on a future bond measure. Knowledge that the measure will address overcrowding. 61% favored with information that some of the district schools are between 106 and 137% over capacity. 58% favored with information that it would enable the district to replace temporary modular classrooms. 59% believed renovating and creating permanent classroom space was a high priority. And then 57% agreed with the statement. Several of the district's K-8 schools are between 106 and 137% over capacity. And this also is in line with your initial when we asked folks whether they believe that some of the district schools were overcrowded. If you remember earlier in the survey, 60% believed the district schools were overcrowded, and you see again consistency here in all of these questions. If new students district-wide would have equal educational facilities, 58% favored with that piece of information. In the corresponding agree-disagree question, I like the idea of ensuring all students are provided with equal educational facilities district-wide. 56% of respondents agreed with that statement. Technology upgrades, 55% of respondents favored with information that the bond measure includes technology upgrades, and 59% gave technology upgrades a high priority rating. Again, we're seeing good consistency. So these are all things that the community values. District saves taxpayers $10 million by refinancing the bond. That's here we're seeing a little bit of there's a 10% difference between these two responses. So if you knew Oregon Trail School District saved property taxpayers $10 million by refinancing the bond approved by voters in 2008, 57% stayed with that piece of information. In the agree-disagree, the school district has been a good steward of our tax dollars, saving property taxpayers $10 million. We tied this question to the to the passage or support for the bond measure. But I do believe that there is a cost factor here, that there is some property tax sensitivity within the community, or property tax increase sensitivity within the community. And so I do think that that is what is driving this response. And as you can see here, when we look at the actual cost questions that we asked, 47% favored with information about the cost at $64,000 or $224 per year. My property taxes are already too high. I can't support a 64 cents a thousand. 41% disagreed with that statement. So again, we're comparing the favor, and then, you know, if people were to favor, the reason why we're highlighting that is we're trying to see what's going on with folks here. And then the proposed bond measure includes too many projects. If the district put down the proposal, so it will reduce the cost of property taxpayers, I support the bond measure. 34% disagreed means is we were looking at the totality of the bond measure. The 53% do agree that if the district pared down the proposal, they would support a bond measure. So here we have the agree-disagree statements in descending order of agreement. So as you can see, protecting the community's investment was the top agree-disagree statement that people agreed with at 67%. Knowing that, or information about the district schools being over capacity, 57% agreed with that statement. Ensuring all students are provided with equal educational facilities regardless of where they attend school, 56% agreed with that statement. The proposed bond measure includes too many projects. 53% agree with that statement. My property taxes are already too high. I can't support a 64 cent per thousand increase. 52% agree with that statement. And then the school district has been a good steward of our tax dollars. 47% agree with that statement. I don't know, there are some other factors that may be contributing to the cost sensitivity or property tax increase sensitivity. I don't know what's been going on in your particular district as far as whether home values are increasing at a more rapid rate than income levels. There's a lot of reasons that may be contributing to why there's some cost sensitivity here in terms of the tax increase related to this proposal. So basically, the conclusions are kind of a repeat of what I just went over. So again, not sure if overwhelmingly the top response given and asked if any serious problems still facing the district, followed that is a problem and a lack of funding. But we have less half of respondents give Oregon Trail School District a positive summit rating. We believe that additional education and communication in the community about the positive contributions the district has made to students to build awareness and positive perception. Main reasons for a positive rating are good performance, from what I've heard, and always room for improvement. Reasons for a negative rating are students don't get a good education, always room for improvement, and poor leadership. Slightly less than half of respondents believe they receive a good value for what they pay in school district property taxes. Reasons for not believing they receive a good value is property taxes are too high. Again, that kind of goes back to what I was talking about. If there's a tax sensitivity issue here, too much waste and students don't get a good education. A large number of respondents believe some of the districts to schools are overcrowded. But there is also a relatively large number that are not sure whether the district to schools are overcrowded. So again, additional education, communication, including photographs and video about how overcrowding is impacting student learning, could help increase knowledge levels about the issue and also could work positively to impact the bond measure. Respondents were nearly split, with 45% that initially opposed and 44% that favored a $125 million bond measure. Reasons for opposing were the mismanaged funds, taxes are high and asking for too much money, and they're not transparent about what's being said. Main reasons for favoring the bond measure are schools need the funds, schools always need improvements, and students deserve good education. There was a slight decrease at the end of the survey after listening to all the pros and cons in the number of respondents that favor the measure, but in reality, those numbers remain relatively consistent from the beginning to the end. The largest increase is knowing that there would be a volunteer independent citizens oversight committee. While this is a primary issue and should be part of a future money measure campaign, I believe that there are other more relevant messages that should be placed greater emphasis, that you could place greater emphasis on. This is, it does generally encourage the support across all demographic groups, and it's one of the top messages for 35 to 44-year-olds and for voters, and there's a top message for males, for 25 to 34 who are forward in office. Another argument soliciting strong support is knowledge that bond payments would be structured so many residents move into the community in the future would assist. This is especially important in the school districts such as yours that is growing at a more rapid pace than some of the other school districts across the state. And this elicited a strong majority of support across every demographic group, and was the top message for your 3 of 4 and 4 voters, Sandy and Bourne. Knowledge that the bond measure would address overcrowding issues district-wide is also moved the majority of respondents in nearly every demographic group to favor the proposal. Protecting the community's large investment in school buildings is also a primary issue for respondents and is a high priority across most demographic groups. Provide equal educational facilities for improved student learning is a primary issue, and again solicits a majority of support in most demographic groups. Provide equal and permanent classroom space that relieves overcrowding, which will in turn positively impact student learning, is a primary issue for respondents. A large number of respondents rate upgrades throughout the district as the highest priority, followed by construct and renovate to create permanent classroom space and technology infrastructure upgrades. On the other hand, upgraded access to school buildings receives a lower priority rating. So basically, in kind of encapsulating everything, there is a lack of knowledge regarding issues facing the district, as reflected in some of the relatively high percentage of voters that don't know what issues are facing the district, as well as the relatively high not sure ratings in other areas tested. I believe that some of these not sure respondents could be due to the influx of new residents moving into the community. While slightly less than half of respondents initially favor a $125 million bond measure, support does significantly increase with information that bond payments would be structured so new residents would help pay for the bond measure. The district would assemble a citizens oversight committee. Information the bond measure will protect the community's investment in school buildings, relieve overcrowding, provide permanent and equal educational facilities, all have a positive impact, or which all have a positive impact on student learning, all solicit also very strong levels of support. On the other hand, access to school buildings and improvements to parking areas and so on are seen as a low priority, and they also, respondents also appear to be concerned about high taxes and the cost of $125 million bond measure at 64 cents per thousand. We believe the district needs to consider a comprehensive education and communication campaign in the community about issues facing the district and how school funds are being spent before moving forward with the bond measure campaign. I think this is especially important with those voters. I think the communications campaign is most important with those new residents that may not be as familiar with what the school district has been doing, as well as with those voters that are of an older age category. If and when the district decides to move forward with a bond measure, they may want to change the way or consider changing the way to talk about upgraded access to the school parking lot and so on component, such as time use improvements and student safety if applicable. And if you can mount a strong positive education campaign in the community about why a bond is needed and how it will impact student learning, you may be able to solicit the level of support needed to be successful. It will be very important if and when the district decides to move forward with a bond, for it to lead these messages into a clear and concise strategy using those messages and priorities that community strongly support. And there is a fine concern expressed by some respondents regarding money management the district should continue to address, but this is a concern that I see all across Oregon. This is not unusual to Oregon Trail School District. Actually, none of these results are unusual compared to what I'm seeing in other districts overall. So I know I've overloaded you with a ton of information. What kind of questions do you have for me based on what you've learned today?
Hi, Melissa. This is Nicole O'Neill. So my first question here is, what percentage should we see? What percentage do you normally see in a bond for a survey that results in a successful bond measure? Like, what would be a good number for us to have at this point for support?
I would love to see at 55+% as an initial questions, such as the who's the unbiased, who's the head. 56% would be ideal. Obviously, the higher the number, the better, but we have to factor in that plus or minus 5% margin of error. So we'd like to see something over 55%, ideally. So that's what I would like to see, and that's what I would say you would need, I would want to see in order to feel comfortable saying that, you've got a great shot at passing a bond measure. On the other hand, you do have messages that are very strong and move people to favor. So delivering consistent and prioritizing those messages in a way that people can understand, utilizing the messages and the way that they were worded within this questionnaire could, over time, build that level of support that you need to be successful.
Where we're at the last time.
So my next question then is, so the reasons for ranking, were those open responses or closed responses? And then were the agreed, disagrees, were those open responses or closed responses? So like people were given a list and they picked what they most agreed with, or was this just, were those open responses?
Basically, the agree, disagree questions were asked exactly as they were presented here.
Okay.
So as you can see here in the slide,
Okay.
so basically we have to find whether they agreed or disagreed with the statement.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with the priority questions, they were read, basically we asked them on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 being a low priority, 4 being a high priority, how would you rate the following construction projects? And then we'd read them each of these questions, and then they would give a ranking of 1 or 4, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay, so the reasons for rating, then, so the students didn't get a good education, too much waste, they mismanaged funds, were those things that people came up with that language on their own, or was that an option that was given to them?
No. So all of the open-ended questions, for example, what were 3 of the most serious issues? That was completely open-ended. It was whatever the respondent said, whatever responses the respondent said, those were recorded. Same thing when we asked them why they gave a positive or negative rating. Those were unaided. Those were voluntary responses given by respondents. Same thing in the who's ahead, favor, opposed question, why they were not offered any kind of response. Those were unaided responses given by the people participating.
Awesome. And then my next question then is, why isn't there an agree, disagree for the independent oversight? Because that was the thing that most moved people, and then that was not something that was included in the agree, disagree section, like on how we should message that.
So basically what we do is we have to be sensitive to people's tolerance on a telephone call, and we can't triple check every single question within the survey. I would assume, based on the high level of support it received, that it would probably also have received a high level of agreement there. I think it's still something that could be used in a campaign because of the high level of support given to that particular piece of information. But we have to pick and choose. We try to pick things that may be a little less supported, and then we try to pick those messages that we think may be more strongly supported. But we can't always double check every question in the survey simply that we run out of time and the budget and so on.
Yeah, but that's the one that was 23%, that's a lot. That is that's the largest change. And so I'm just surprised because that seems to be the most impactful thing there.
We had no idea when we developed this questionnaire.
Okay, so you didn't already have the question. Okay, I got you.
Melissa, so I get this right, on the initial questioning, these went in order when you did the survey?
Yeah, the If You Knew and the priority series and the agree, disagree are not, these are in the order, we listed, for example, in the If You Knew series, those are listed in ranked order. They are not listed the way that they were asked in the questionnaire.
Okay.
So,
I was just curious, when I'm looking at, okay, so initially, when you were asking the response of the most serious problem facing the school district, And I thought it was interesting, the number one response was not sure. And then the two
Right.
other top
And that
was
was-
overcrowding and lack of funding. And then those by far were the majority of the responses there. I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting, the not sure part.
Yeah, and the reason why we asked that question first is because we really want to get a sense of what knowledge levels are in the community and whether or not, there is what people do and don't know. And so by asking an open-ended question like that and allowing people to give their unaided response based on what their own knowledge levels are tells you a whole lot about, where people are at and what they are or are not aware of.
Okay. Any other board members have any questions?
Ms. Marshawn, I'm curious, do we feel like that we had enough respondents that were reflective of our community and town? 374?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
That's a good number?
Yes. So basically, before we ever go out and do a survey, the industry standard for most survey research firms across the state is a plus or minus 5% margin of error at the 95% level of confidence. And just to give you an example, so in the state of Oregon, we have over 2 million registered voters, right? A 400 sample size for a statewide survey, which we do all the time, a 400 sample size is a plus or minus 4.91, which was basically very close to a plus or minus 5%. So as communities become smaller, you have to talk to a greater portion. So in your case, we had to talk to 374 respondents to get to that same industry standard of plus or minus 5% margin of error, the 95% level of confidence. So, a 400 sample for 2 million voters and 374 for your particular community, it's just kind of inherent with the way the science and calculation is that you talk to a greater proportion of the community, of a smaller community than you do of the greater whole. But this is a formula that's used all over. I mean, the scientific formula, statistically scientific formula used nationwide and outside of in the world.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Melissa? Melissa,
I think we appreciate your spending the time with us tonight to give that presentation, answer the questions. And I think we can, at this point, let you go and have a perfect evening. Mow the lawn, put the lights on or something like that before it rains.
Thanks, Melissa.
Will do. Thank you again for inviting me to present these results. And if you have other questions after, we're done here, someone from the district can track me and I'd be happy to answer.
So you'll be watching the phone until midnight tonight?
I may not respond until tomorrow, but I will definitely try to get
While mowing the lawn with a headlamp.
There we go. Thank you very much, Melissa.
All right.
Thank you.
thanks, Melissa.
All right, bye-bye.
Interesting. Aaron, I know you were dwelling on these numbers.
Yeah, so we did a few things. Next steps, we're going to continue with the communication piece. As she said, Julie's working with Jeremy right now. He's the campaign manager. He's the campaign for a number of school districts. I think he's in the running to do that new campaign 1.4 where we go after. So continue to work with him, and then simultaneously, as we've said, we have the pending issue right now with our population. So Jim, who's not here tonight, he's pricing modulars. We're planning to get 2 modulars and also help offset the capacity issues that we have there for next year. We're also working with the county to find capacity at Mass for more modulars. I think those permits up for the 40 views, I think they left. So, and then we're looking at doing some hydrology tests at all of our elementary schools to find out if we have water, septic tests to find out what the septic capacity right for for the amount of students that are going to our district. So Julie will continue down the campaign path, while a number of us will continue to look at leveraging every one of our assets, building assets, to find capacity for all of the students living in the city.
Yeah.
Wait, so let me back up this a second. So did we ever actually vote that we were gonna do the bond?
No.
We didn't.
So we have not yet done that. So how much is the communication budget gonna be?
Until we talk to Jeremy, we won't know. So Jeremy's got to say, hey, here's all the parts and pieces that you want, that you desire, here's the costs associated therein, and then we'll have to go back and say.
Okay, and then at that point, we will vote and if we want to move forward.
I think we gotta look, I think what you're saying is we gotta look at this thing from two perspectives. A bond, capacity, and A, no bond. What do we do with capacities? Using the existing buildings that we have today. And I even imagine boundaries could be involved in that
Yeah, we should
situation.
be involved in that.
Right.
You know, leveraging every one of the facilities.
All of our buildings, we're gonna have to look at what space we have in every building in the district.
I was really not surprised by this. This is almost exactly what I was expecting.
The survey. Have you seen?
I've gone through several of these, so this is almost.
Well, it's not extremely far off from what we face it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, what did we look at the initial surveys of the high school ones at?
Well, so the difference we had in the 50s was favorable at that time. The difference is that with this survey, over probably 85% are people without kids in school. In prior surveys, we probably got half of the respondents were parents. So that's kind of the difference. So it is that community of folks that you expect are not going to have as much information. So I'm not surprised by the not sure. But it gives us a good baseline, you know, what we need to communicate with them about. We have good strategies that we're working on with Jeremy's.
It's interesting to find out what they want to get more. I like that we started on the So you
Yeah,
know
and I mean that,
information
yeah.
how to get out.
Yeah, they're not just flat out no. They just need more information.
Yeah, we had different challenges previously with the bond that we did. And then there had been 3 somewhat recent attempts that failed miserably. And, so we got over that hump, but between now and then, the mode of communication, how we communicate. Social media is not a big factor in our bond campaign. And I think we have a big hurdle on some misinformation that tends to spin out of control. I think that's where Jeremy will come in and help advise on that. It's hard to talk to taxpayers and the way Oregon is set up, where we fund school upkeep and new buildings through property taxes. The state just puts it all on the backs of the local districts, and that's really hard, especially for bordering districts that have a complex demographics, which we do. We have a city, we have very rural areas, and a large diversity of income sets. So,
The one thing to maybe think about too is if Jeremy, this gentleman, is going to be doing possibly the Portland bond, I mean, that's a big job. Do we want our communications person, the person who's helping us, to also be at the same time working on that? Because that is a really big job. That would.
Right. It's not an individual, it's a company, so there's
Okay.
other people.
Okay.
No, Jeremy, when I started calling other PR folks in school districts, I mean, to a person, every single one said you need to contact Jeremy.
Yeah.
Because they've all done it. Chris Marlowe, used him, UPS, and they're bond for in the city or. Yeah, it's just a good place to go.
So then, when would his services begin? Or their services begin?
As soon as possible.
So like in a month, 2 months? What do you?
More than a month. I mean, the thing is, Jeremy has been advising us for weeks without a contract.
Okay.
Ready to go
so-
play.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Because the thing that I noticed is that Estacada, they sent out to all of their residents, they got really nice picture postcards where they were invited to come to the meeting, and then childcare was provided and dinner was provided. They've got they had a big sign up there on the lawn of the school with that same information. And so that seems like those are steps that
I think,
I want us to
So
have nice things too.
Estacada is going out in May.
Yeah.
So they're moving forward double time right now.
Right, they're way ahead of
And-
the process of what we're.
And Jeremy is their campaign advisor.
And those are all things that we did.
We had multiple, 20, how many meetings did we have at that time? A blur.
It seemed like every night. But yeah, I mean, it will get to a point where almost every night of the week we're doing.
When we get to that point, we're messaging and getting opinions and getting their input and presentations. We had multitude of presentations of what does this look like, what would you like to see here? And this is back and forth input. Right.
And then, so then we really are gonna, we're really gonna wanna be coordinating with the city.
The
Because
city's not really involved in, but two schools of all our schools.
but what I'm saying is you have a large overlap where they're going out for a lawn meeting in November, we're gonna be competing with them. So she wouldn't know to ask. They never asked, if you would be more or less likely, which one would you vote for? If you were presented with both of these options, would you vote for one or would you vote for neither? I
We wouldn't
mean,
put that
That's a bit of an out-of-school question for our audience.
but that has a big impact on whether or not it's gonna pass.
I mean, there's a lot of things that could impact
The economy,
the cities right now,
coronavirus.
the people upset with a water bill, right? There's things
Yeah.
that would be a factor.
Right.
We're looking at this from an aspect of the school district.
Right. So when we went out in 2008, there was a county-wide library
Right.
venture. There's always a lot of leading issues that we go
You
against.
almost can't run.
So you go out and hesitancy between like
So
that.
Mountains will have I guarantee you.
Every election is given multiple
Fire was up. That's given. So, we have a team working, Jim's, like I said, Jim's not here now, but we're looking hard at what do we need to do in the more immediate future to house our students.
we have good geospatial software that Scott's doing a lot of work with. Tim, I'm sure myself, looking at different zones and boundaries, and how do we populate all of our facilities differently moving forward, to include portables and not include portables. If it was possible for us to rezone our district without portables, that would be our first option, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we're fortunate, we have a couple of portables I think we're gonna get for free from, just because they're free doesn't mean there's not a cost associated. You have to take them down, you have to rebuild them, you have to transport them, right? So with those two portables, getting them for free, it's still about $410 grand for two portables. But we're looking at doing that in the immediate future for Kelso, while simultaneously looking at, it's called Guide K-12, it's still called Guide, and finding out where would it be best for us to draw those lines, so we can push kids out into those areas that might have some soft spots.
Just a personal comment. To me, portables should never be intended as a permanent fix. So if that's what our interim is, I hope we will address that.
That's not our intention. You have to have a plan for kids.
And those portables we're working on, that is to start next school year.
Start to go there.
Kelso.
Right now, we have, we use a teacher operates out of a storage room right now. The kids, we convert the music room to computer lab. One of our self-contained classes got so big it didn't have a bathroom, so we had to move into computer lab, which had a bathroom, and then move computer lab into the whole music room, and then move the music room into the storage. Use another power supply to put a bunch of computers in storage, and climate control in there, possibility for not computers in that. So, Kelso, we have, you and Kelso. Yeah. My way off?
Now I'm then. No, that's where she
Yeah.
is. That used to be an AOD classroom.
Yeah. So, we're there, you know, Kelso.
Yeah. And then some.
Particularly, you know, NAS already has, we're already using portable on NAS as a classroom right now, particularly for specialists, Yale, Little Title, special schools. Nothing we want to be permanent, but, you know, we'll be close to
I don't know about you guys, but I was looking back on that McKinstry report. Wow, we have got to figure out a way to make something happen for our schools. We convey that message out there on some of these buildings and some of the conditions we're facing right now, and they're not getting better.
because he's
Not much left in some of these cases. We need to get some things handled. In my opinion, some of that's pretty dire.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the good things in the bond, in those survey results was that 60% realize there's overcrowding. And looking at the fact that it's mainly senior citizens who are saying that, and they know that, they need more information on what the consequences are. But at least they realize we're crowded.
Well, general citizens definitely can see the growth of construction and people moving in. I mean,
Tim, are we tracking on the high side of our survey or our population?
So we're right in the middle right now, but this is the first second year. Yeah, so we don't have enough time to know. It's the end middle, the live right now.
Quit selling real estate.
It's a busy year.
Just don't sell to anybody with kids.
Well,
Yes.
get them paying
No, I put that,
taxes.
the whole video of the community on the signature lines.
So
I'll
Marty,
tell you,
a question for you. Melissa had mentioned that our property values might be rising more than our incomes.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Is that true?
Do you think? That was a little surprise to me too, to hear that.
Really though? Because so here's what I hear from the employees, and I think back when I was young and starting a family.
Just last year.
Yeah, right.
Keep your mouth shut.
350 grand for a starter house?
That's the first time buyer price.
And they're paying $15 an hour.
400,000 and under is.
I think that there is, yeah, I don't know how we do that.
My son was out here last summer. Maybe that's
Right, I get it, but
That's what it's
still,
getting.
it's just,
I used to say when if the houses up in Cascadia Village ever hit 300,000, we're done. That's that now. I never thought I would see that.
So two factors on income. One, are people applying for free and reduced as the population has gone up over the past several years, it's gone down. That's greater than one. Number two, Standard & Poor's just did an update on kind of the state of our rating, credit rating for the district. And they mark their rating that our median income for the area is good. It's above. Our credit rating is slightly better than.
Gotta continue. I don't know what else, is there anything else you had to discuss on that subject? I mean, it's, the plans to go forward, looking basically in two directions. And then I
at some point, we're gonna have to come together and decide, will we need to make a move for motion to go towards the bond?
Yes, so,
Or not?
so one of those points that Julie's work is to get Jeremy, who is doing Advocatus project, on board and have him help us move that direction. I think we have until June-ish, maybe, and then look at creating a follow-up survey. It's time to use the Nelson report and let Jeremy's team help us with that survey so we can see what the perspectives on it. And then if that report comes back, we do achieve, we say we're like 60%, I know this is like 56%. And if we achieve that magic number, then we'll go forward.
So you're saying after we hire Jeremy, we start pushing that information out there so the knowledge is going on, that you can consider?
Not, let's
Not-
just do it.
And you know, the message is moving.
Right, but remember, there'll be a transition point when our information here is information push out and gathering, not campaigning. So don't confuse yourself with Jeremy B. We at some point will develop our PAC, which you've already got some leadership stepped up to organize that. But at that point, the PAC then needs to take over funding a campaign.
Or is it just strictly education?
And so that's good food for thought. Think of strong community members, because that's what pushed the bar in the last campaign. We had really good, strong community members from each community that worked tirelessly to make sure we passed that bar.
I just want to point out one of the biggest things food deal is the bond oversight. We had a bond oversight committee for our last bond. So we evolved step by step. Worked out on those. It was very clear. So that's something that we need to increase.
Yeah.
And that's best practice, is it not? I mean, that was, I feel like, just to say it out loud, I remember that we had that.
Are you working?
And
I know
it's
that's best
always-
practice.
It's always a priority in surveys. It's in the last.
Where's the barn?
Well,
Old schoolhouse?
The old schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Matt Sanders has, he and I talked here about a month ago about maybe slapping some paint, putting axes on it.
Bring it back.
Put it back. Actually, that was probably one of the funnest bonding time for that PAC leadership group.
You should
was
tell everyone what
building.
you're talking about, because basically.
We built the Little Red Schoolhouse, and we built it for Mountain Days. And we had some very skilled carpenters, and then we had some very unskilled painters volunteered their time, and we all pitched in for materials. And
It's kind of a mascot. really.
I heard at Mountain Days that we were the biggest attraction that year.
Didn't we have to set up down below?
We were right
City Hall.
behind City Hall.
City Hall.
They gave us that premier spot, so people kind of had to walk by us, but, they thought, well, this is cool. We had it all looking like an old schoolhouse where somebody found some old painted windows. First time we transported, we realized you gotta take the windows out, because they break when it bounces down the road, so we gotta go find windows twice. But I mean, it was that kind of thing that really brought the community together to say, you know what, we failed 3 times. We gotta do it. So,
yeah, it only took us, 20 years to convince the community to like.
yeah.
I wonder how much of the public that was involved in that bond, and, shout out about taxes. No, I mean, I remember my neighbor knocked on my door, come back to move, and I go, oh, good luck buying a new district, it doesn't have a bond. But anyway,
Well,
if
we're
that-
mid-range.
Yeah, so-
Right. But if that will come back to say, I mean, I can hear people say, well, what about the money from the last bond? Because that was geared for the high school and some other things, but I think that's gonna come up, like, well, what happened to all of that? People that don't, just what's going on right now.
Explainer sheet.
That's something that's gonna be, yeah. So that's gonna be part of that education out there,
Really alluded to, our combined school district tax rate for Clackamas County is average.
Right.
And even after the potential
why I keep talking about the facilities things, is because people, we saw that they don't feel like they necessarily get a good thing for their buck. That's an easy stop to the community. We want you to be here. We want you to feel like these buildings are good for you, even if you don't have a kid at the high school. It's an easy fix. It's something that's an easy goodwill building gesture.
Well, it sounds easy, but the problem is when you gotta repair and do maintenance, that comes out of the classroom. What do you think? Out of the classroom?
I hear all the time about how subs aren't being filled, jobs aren't being filled, and we're saving a lot of money.
Sorry.
When those jobs aren't filled, that money goes to a sub, who's an internal sub, and we pay them on their hourly rate.
Yeah.
So oftentimes that costs us a little bit more than stuff from the outside. Even though double up costs us.
You're not paying PERS, you're not paying all of that, and I hear from people that you are not necessarily, subs aren't being hired, that younger employees are being asked to chip in, and somebody calls in sick, and you don't, there isn't necessarily a sub for that day.
Well, no, it's not because we're not hiring, validate what we hear to make sure there's not any misconceptions between what we heard and what reality is.
I'm hearing that from employees.
Subs don't exist. So we put the jobs out, they don't get filled because they don't pick up the job. So we had 16 subs the other day in the district. We had people that just didn't pick up jobs because there's a shortage of subs. The state has changed the regulation for getting a certificate. So now if you have a bachelor's degree, they will certificate you can actually be a full-time teacher. You don't have to sub anymore. So there's a definite shortage of subs statewide.
Yeah.
So regarding the PERS, the fact that January 1st, under the new law, you gave PERS on virtually all of our substitutes because most of them are post-retired folks doing work. So it used to be the fact that we didn't pay PERS on substitutes, but now we do.
Yeah, but the rate for a sub is much less than it's gonna be for somebody with a lot of experience as a teacher. You know, providing them health insurance.
Teacher and the substitutes.
I'm saying you're having jobs that are going unfilled. I'm saying that there's jobs that are sitting unfilled for 6 months. I'm saying that there are people who are getting called and told to come in for jobs that haven't been posted yet.
And I'm saying that we as board members are responsible with taxpayers, right? So we have to do wise with the money we're entrusted with, right? So when we start, and we have already done facilities evaluations, that's how we came up with our rates, right? You could say we're flush with cash today, well, it's because we've managed the district well, right? If we start giving things away, that then we have to take money out of our general fund, which funds classrooms, to repair fields. That's what you're proposing, and I don't think that
It's also not our place to be administrators here.
I don't think that's a good long-term approach to.
It's a the policy, the facility use fees is a board policy, and you're not gonna have that much of you. Ballet recitals aren't gonna put that much wear and tear on the field. Pee Wee soccer isn't gonna put that much wear and tear on the mud fields at the elementary school. I'm saying it's an easy soccer. I'm saying it's an easy good go community. That's all I'm saying.
If you look, the majority, if not all districts have facilities.
I know they
There's
do.
a reason why.
But that doesn't, but what I'm saying is we're coming in here, we're asking people to give us more money. We're looking at results that tell us that people feel like they're not getting, a good value for what they're already paying. So I'm suggesting that as an option, as a way to acknowledge that concern, acknowledge that feeling, and try to mitigate it.
I think a stronger way to push that out would be to show them what we did with the money out of the first one.
I would much rather be marketing
Because
and
that
getting
money
responsible
went way
use of our
further
dollars.
by far than we ever anticipated.
And that's really good, and it looks like people don't really know that, because you've got like 40+% of people saying that they disagree with that the district managed that money well.
You've got a 10-year gap between when we did it and what did I allude to earlier? Social media does a lot of swaying of opinion. It's probably the last place we should go for opinion. So
I don't have social media.
That's not good.
I am directing that at the broad statement you're making about our perception.
I'm saying is that there's community perception. People don't trust what's happening. They don't trust, we do not have good relations.
And that's why we're looking at this right now, and we are going to
Yeah.
campaign for that. I would much rather see for usage of this funds directed in a situation where we can eliminate or reduce activity fees.
That would be
For
great if
students
we could
and
eliminate
kids.
activity fees.
You know,
Definitely.
eliminate or reduce somehow to a point where, because this is the last thing, I mean, you're a great sponsor, no pioneer left behind to help sponsor. Now, when I say activities, I don't mean just sports, I mean any activity for any student after school, preschool, whatever. But I would hate to see any students that are left behind because they don't have the ability to pay for it. And so I would much rather see funding go in that direction. If we can reduce that, so we have given our students more opportunities for after-school participation in the activities they like to be involved in.
Larger population of students.
I think it's a great idea. I think that that's a wonderful idea. I think we should look at that as the budget committee going forward. Because you're right, especially because even when there are scholarships, which is great, there's so many kids who are not going to ask for it, who would like to participate. They're not going to ask for the money. They're embarrassed, or they don't know it's available, that it applies to them. I think that's a great idea. I think we should look at that and look at that as the budget committee and see if we can make that happen. I think that's great.
There's a lot of things we'd like to provide our money to, and there's a multitude of things that we'd love to fund, and we'll never have enough money to go. But we've got to look at those priorities and try and help our students, because I think our administration's done a fantastic job developing that CTE classes, the classes that we brought online, and what we've done for students, in the last 5 years especially, has been incredible. We need to keep on that path, and we've got to keep looking. We never stand still.
I think that's very true. The one thing I do have concerns about is I have concerns. I'm hearing that there's kids starting credit recovery classes the day before graduation. I'm hearing that kids are starting credit recovery classes way past the deadline, and that is really concerning.
I'm not aware of that.
I'm just
But,
saying,
and one of the things I think we're gonna be looking at, when we look at this extra expenditures coming out of the budget, we're looking at this money, we're looking at more counseling, more help. We are certainly understaffed when it comes to working with our students, as most districts are.
And as we just discussed, there's a good chance we're gonna spend $1 million on portables, at least to get to the point where we get the building worked on. So, we gotta keep that in mind too.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking, we're gonna spend a lot of money in the next 6 months, basically, just to keep our students housed out of our facilities. I mean, we're gonna spend a ton.
And our state budget is not stable.
Yeah.
It's not as stable as people think.
Well, especially looking at the current market conditions going on in the economy, that just might have done a flip.
So on facilities, I know Cedar Ridge, the new Cedar Ridge school, is using the first floor. And is there consideration of using that?
The second floor? So we're capped at 650 students for that building, and those additional each currently received from the city, for the students in there, and the bottom floor can afford the
So no.
So, yeah, so we get.
Okay, I was just curious.
No, we could. It was just you did have to, I mean, you have to make sure that the fire suppression upstairs, you have to do, go to the city.
The problem is traffic.
Traffic.
The problem is the building is traffic.
And I was just curious if that was an option. It sounds like it's not.
Right now,
But
it's
practical
not.
in the short term.
MTSP calls for some other outlets, and if those outlets are quickly, then it may be an option, but until then, it's not an option.
But it would probably open a whole lot of other discussions about who.
It would.
Because I
Yeah.
remember all of that with the middle school.
And then one of the issues that we deal with a two-story facility, we talked about if we could get to that place, we try to have a K-8, we try to have elementary, middle, all in one facility.
Sure.
You try to draw more kids from Boarding Middle School to Cedar Ridge.
So other decisions would
Yeah.
come into it, but there's been thought given to it, and
Yes.
it's not really included in that 125 that's being talked
Not
about.
right.
Or in the alternative.
Not right.
That's just curiosity.
But it was looked at when we began the renovation process of that building, and it was the transportation
Well, it's-
issue in and out.
Two pieces. One, the reason why the upstairs isn't being used at all still use the upstairs and keep it within 600 kids, but building code is upstairs, and it costs us several $1 million to do the things to get upstairs up to that standard, just to use it at all. That's separate from we're capped at 600 whatever kids, which is an additional use. That was more element of parking and traffic. And you can see where we get enough complaints because of afternoon pickup time.
Sure.
That's what leads to the population.
Okay, I know we're talking portables, and I'm just thinking, okay, where do we have space? I just want to make sure we have that conversation.
Come on, 362nd Avenue.
That would help. Yeah.
That would be a big difference right there. Take so much pressure off. All right, so so people know this is going to be pushed out on the website Monday, what you just saw on the screen?
Yeah.
So that will be available to the public Monday? Is it?
I believe so. Is that fair?
Okay. There we go. And I kind of.
Can you put a recap
I'm not
of
trying.
the last one on the website? And then which, that summary sheet. No. Yeah, well, just.
Sure.
Just.
Because you know the questions are coming and it's going to be a big concern and the media is blowing up.
Coronavirus. DJ just whispered coronavirus in my ear. So, COVID-19 is coronavirus disease 2019, right? So that's the most recent scare. Over the years, we've developed a really comprehensive emergency operations plan. So we have a plan for pandemic flu. Our plan for pandemic flu would also be the same plan that we move forward with if this became a pandemic with the coronavirus. One of the things we've done is this, not that we would need a shelter, but if we did, the high school becomes is a Red Cross shelter, which is K-8 is a Red Cross shelter. We work with the county. We're one of the pod sites for any distribution of any medications that might have to happen when the flu, the swine flu came through. How many years ago was that? 5?
It's in 2009.
Before that, 2009 came through. I don't know. That's about 5 years ago. Yeah.
I got lots of it.
We really started a lot of that work. That was my, I guess that was in the high school. We started that with swine flu. I was in high school, and that was one of the concerns, where we find enough space to provide vaccinations and or any kind of inoculations that we might need in order to deal with first the preventive measure and or cure. So we're all over that. We've been updating that. We're going to do a conference call tomorrow with the rest of Clackamas County to see what folks are engaging in. We talked this morning about one school district, Miami-Dade County. They plan to use robots. If they find that a kid has symptoms, the plan is kind of leave a kid in a room and send a robot in so that the kid can talk to a nurse face to face. We're not going that far. Right? So know that
Could be terrifying.
A cough robot.
Yeah, well, we do have one. They say it's a robot. What it is it's has a telescopic arm on it. It's on a big wheel. You put an iPad on one side, and then you can move that all over the place and manipulate that through a classroom, and then you have real-time conversations. We use that in the event that we have a student that comes to us with maybe a severe disability and or breaks a pelvis or something during the middle of the school year and can't get to school every day. Those are the cases that we use that for. We have, if you start to hear that there's all these other people doing stuff, we have no intention of putting a kid in a room and setting on a robot and talking. So, and we just had this conversation today in our academy.
And the only reason I brought it up, because you know the questions are coming, that, there's so much going on in the news about it right now. How much is hype, how much is reality?
Yeah.
It's tough.
We had, I think there's 60 cases in Oregon was the most recent, and then today there's a case they've identified that they're monitoring that they don't believe came from a cruise ship or China. this guy just ended up with me in Northern California with sinus symptoms. So it's a severe, it's respiratory disease, right? So in Northern California, people found some they didn't have. What's that?
Just like most polls before.
Yeah. So-
Going to be the first case of transmitted potentially with an unknown source within the country. So one of the key things to understand though is that we are subordinate to county health department. They will take the lead on a lot of the elements around this.
Okay, so the county, and then possibly I'm hearing states could even override this county and the state. Is that
We
kind of
still
the
come to us
situation?
peaceably.
We're getting asked by everybody right now. State, CDC.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody, we're on every listserv. So then there's another joint meeting on March 13th. There'll be more of the state will have. So we'll be.
All right. Thank you for, I mean, I just thought we'd get that out because, you know, that's, you save a few phone calls there. If there's no further discussion on the topics, oh, wait a minute, hold on, let me go back. What do we have? Announcements, March 10th, school board meeting right here, 7 o'clock, and March 12th, the OTA board meeting, 5:30 at the OTA school. And I think we're working on a possibility of a workshop coming up in March, right?
Yes.
Setting a date.
Just have to make sure we finalize that with Kristen.
With Kristen Mills, okay? And we'll announce that as soon as we have that finalized.
So, March 10th, that's,
9.
No,